weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Weird Science Comics YouTube channel, where I'm going to be reviewing Mary Jane and Black Cat number 5. And this has been a fun book, but also a very, very odd one. It ties into Dark Web, which I hated, but I'll read everything Jed MacKay does with Black Cat. And I love MJ, but I don't love the idea of her having powers. And then there's the whole thing with Paul and the kids. Wacky. It's wacky, I'm telling you, but let's get into this finale and see how it all wraps up. We'll start with the credits and the recap. Mary Jane and Black Cat number 5 is written by Jed MacKay. Art by Vincenzo Carratù. The colors by Brian Reber. Letters by VC's Ariana Mayer. Mary Jane Watson and Felicia Hardy, a.k.a. the Black Cat, are stuck in limbo. Felicia went to help MJ and her family at the behest of MJ's ex and Felicia's current secret boyfriend, Peter Parker, a.k.a. Spider-Man, only to discover that MJ had powers of her own, though they weren't enough to prevent MJ and Felicia from getting pulled through a portal into the hellish dimension. Now they've struck a deal with Belasco, Limbo's former ruler, for passage back to Earth in exchange for braving the Screaming Tower to retrieve Belasco's lost soul sword. Inside the tower, MJ and Felicia formed a shaky alliance with the demon Sim and defeated the deadly tentacled Tower Guardian. Not as sexy as it sounds. But when they went to retrieve the soul sword, Sim revealed that whoever touched the sword would be bonded to it, meaning that Belasco would have to kill the new owner to get it back. Felicia was prepared to sacrifice herself, but MJ wouldn't have it. Together, they concocted a plan that may yet get them home safely, but there's only one way to find out, and that's to get into the issue. And the issue opens with MJ and Felicia returning to Belasco, but who has the sword and where is Sim? Well, if you've read any of Jed MacKay's Black Cat stuff, you will kind of recognize a bit of the formula here. We get a flashback to see what went down, but if you believe anything you are seeing, then you haven't been paying attention, which I think is what the gals are hoping is the case with Belasco. They tell him that while everyone was centered on Sim, they ran off, leaving him to die, to get the sword, and one of them did grab it, but they aren't telling him who that is. They are revealing that they know that Belasco was playing them and that whoever ended up touching it would get bonded to the sword. So they are coming out on Front Street with that, but they're playing this game to try to make Belasco gamble on who actually has the sword. And it's an odd play because if they are telling the truth, one of them still will die. The only thing that really matters to Belasco is whether he kills the right one and gets his soul sword back. Now, Belasco contemplates it for a second and comes to the conclusion that Mary Jane wouldn't leave her new family, and Felicia would definitely want to be a demon queen. So he blasts Felicia, and that's when we find out that, surprise, surprise, they actually both have the sword. I still don't know why that doesn't make Felicia dead here. She gets blasted, they kind of get the swords and reveal this, but it kind of gets a little bit wonky. The real story here is that Mary Jane used her new powers to split the sword so that they could, quote-unquote, share the load. I'm not going to say that any of this makes a whole lot of sense, but it's fun to see demonic MJ and Black Cat fight Belasco and a demon horde before revealing that Sim is actually still alive, and they kind of make him the soul sword bearer now. And because he has the soul sword and the soul compass of Belasco, he's able to make Belasco his minion. He forces Belasco to send Mary Jane and Felicia back home. And maybe one day he will rule Limbo, because that's the whole play here, too. Everything that feels big kind of isn't, because even if Belasco got his sword, that didn't mean that he's going to rule Limbo. And because Mary Jane and Felicia, they're not going to rule anything. Madeline Pryor still rules Limbo. They would just be able to maybe fight their way to the top. Belasco would try to get his kingdom back, all this stuff, but it wasn't the be-all, end-all deal. And so it is a little bit lessened by that if you really think about it. But the issue ends with Mary Jane telling Felicia she's fine with her dating Peter because she has gone way longer than the 6 months that it appeared. And Paul and the kids are there now. And if you're reading Amazing Spider-Man, you might have been rolling your eyes right there. But I already said this was an odd book. I don't like it as much as Jed MacKay's Black Cat minis, but it was my favorite dark web tie-in. I don't know what to make of Mary Jane's powers, but we'll see what happens to her and those powers probably in Amazing Spider-Man number 25. I'm not thinking that the powers are here to stay. I'm really worried that Mary Jane isn't here to stay. And while I really like seeing Mary Jane and Felicia coming together as a team becoming friends, the whole what will MJ think of Felicia dating Peter plot never really seemed to matter that much. You know, as a reader doing this and reading Amazing Spider-Man and all that, you kind of realize, yeah, this doesn't really matter much. MJ has a family and kids, whether we like it or not. She's moved on from Peter, so it's not going to really matter. But still, the book looked great, and I had a lot of fun reading it. I said it was my favorite dark web tie-in. That's a low bar, but it still is my favorite. And so with that, I'm going to give this issue and probably the whole series, the whole mini, a 7 out of 10. I think it's something that if you do like Black Cat and Jed MacKay writing Black Cat, that sort of thing, you can have some fun with it. It's not anything that I'll really think about. Unless these powers end up sticking, then it might be a little more important down the road. But really, to me, it's a little side note that I did enjoy, which I'm glad that I can enjoy something out of the whole dark web nonsense. So with all that, thanks, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that. And let me know what you thought of the whole thing with Mary Jane and Black Cat, this whole miniseries, this finale in particular. And with that, though, I will talk to you all later.
You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.